The sister of North Korean leader Kim Jong-un has threatened to retaliate against the South. Tensions have escalated over defectors from the North who have been sending back propaganda and food from South Korea. Kim Yo-jung is Kim Jong-un's younger sister and unofficially serves as one of his aides. She issued the warning in a statement carried by state news agency KCNA on Saturday. Though it didn't say what the action might look like, it could involve the military. It comes days after South Korea took legal action against defectors who have been sending material over the border. It can include rice or anti-North Korea leaflets, usually flown by balloon over the heavily fortified border or sent in bottles by sea. Last week, Pyongyang severed inter-Korean hotlines and threatened to close a liaison office between the two governments. As part of the effort to improve ties with the North, South Korean President Moon Jae-in has sought to discourage the leaflet and rice campaigns. Defectors have complained of pressure to avoid criticism of North Korea.
This is BBC World News. I'm Sally Bundock with the headlines. The prominent journalist Maria Ressa has told BBC World News that she will fight the verdict finding her guilty of libel to ensure her government can be held accountable. Ms Ressa was found guilty along with Ronaldo Santos, a colleague on the website Rappler. The French President Emmanuel Macron has defended his coronavirus strategy and set out a plan to return France to normal. He said borders would reopen from today to visitors from many other EU countries. India's federal government has announced new plans to deal with the surge in coronavirus as the country struggles to contain its infection rate. India's total number of confirmed cases put it fourth in the world in the pandemic. Thousands of hotel staff in Austria will be regularly tested for COVID-19 this summer to try to reassure tourists that the country is safe to travel to.
This is AP News Minute. North Korea blew up an inter-Korean liaison office close to the South Korean border. The North called it a terrific explosion that could raise tensions amid deadlocked nuclear talks. President Trump Tuesday is set to announce executive actions on police reform. Senate Republicans are also said to be preparing police reform proposals. Arizona reported more than 1,100 new coronavirus cases Monday. The state has had at least 1,000 COVID-19 patients in hospitals every day for 2 weeks. Crews in Yokohama, Japan battled a fire on a docked cruise ship. No passengers were on board and no injuries were immediately reported. Ed Donahue, The Associated Press, with AP News Minute.
That's called criminal liability. That's a big thing.
A day after U.S. President Donald Trump said John Bolton's upcoming book would be in violation of the law if published, the U.S. government sued Trump's former national security advisor, seeking to block him from publishing the book about his time in the White House. The civil lawsuit said Bolton's memoir contained classified information and would compromise national security. Trump told reporters at the White House Monday that Bolton knows he has classified information in his book and that he had not completed a clearing process required for any book written by former government officials.
He knows, and he was advised not to write it, and he was advised very strongly not to write it until it's cleared. And he couldn't wait, and we'll see what happens.
U.S. Attorney General William Barr doubled down on the notion that the book hasn't been properly vetted.
Joe Biden has repeatedly criticized President Trump's coronavirus pandemic response, including the president's refusal to wear a mask,
I see the disinfectant,
dispensing faulty health safety guidance, and pushing to reopen the U.S. economy, even as COVID-19 infection rates continue to rise in some states.
I think the federal government has abdicated any effective leadership role. The White House, at least, has abdicated that role.
Biden, the former vice president who successfully led the Ebola outbreak containment efforts during the Obama administration, envisions a larger and more assertive federal role in combating the coronavirus. The United States recently surpassed 2 million COVID-19 cases, and the economic crisis has put over 20 million Americans out of work. Biden's plan would increase federal funding to supply free coronavirus testing, treatment, and any eventual vaccine, nationwide. The federal government would pay for hundreds of thousands of healthcare workers to treat the infected and contact trace exposures to prevent the spread of the virus. It would also expand sick leave and unemployment benefits to all workers, including undocumented immigrants.
People of conscience want to implement these programs because the way we take care of our fellow citizens, the pandemic has shown that we need to do that for the collective good, so that everyone's protected from the virus.
Conservatives argue these measures would impose massive costs that would stifle an economic recovery. They believe Democrats will use the pandemic to permanently expand costly government health care programs and increase worker benefits.
We should have a temporary and targeted relief to those who need it most, and not necessarily try to expand Washington's reach into all of our lives.
The contrast between Trump's emphasis on reviving the economy and Biden's focus on making it safe to return to work is giving voters a choice on what has become a central campaign issue. Brian Patton, VOA News, Washington.
This is AP News Minute. President Trump says former National Security Advisor John Bolton revealed classified information and broke the law. Bolton's new book says Trump pleaded with China's president to help re-elect him by importing more U.S. agricultural products. A white Atlanta police officer is charged with felony murder in the shooting death of a black man in a Wendy's parking lot. Defense lawyers say Officer Garrett Rolfe feared for the safety of himself and others and was justified in shooting Rayshard Brooks. Arizona's governor says mayors can make face masks mandatory to stop the spread of the coronavirus. Governor Doug Ducey has been under pressure as the COVID-19 infection rate quickly rises in his state. Ferguson, Missouri has sworn in its first black mayor, Ella Jones. Ferguson became synonymous with the Black Lives Matter movement after a fatal police shooting in 2014. Ed Donahue, The Associated Press, with AP News Minute.
This is BBC World News. I'm David Eads, and these are the headlines. In a new book, Donald Trump's former national security advisor, John Bolton, claims that the president tried to get China's leader to help him secure his re-election. Mr. Bolton also claims that Mr. Trump said China should go ahead with building detention camps to hold Uyghur Muslims. A former police officer in the US state of Georgia has been charged with the murder of Rayshard Brooks. The African-American man was shot twice in the back as he fled from two officers. More than 79 million people are now displaced by wars across the world. That's according to the United Nations, which says it's a record number of people left destitute by conflict. And a leading UK theatre producer is warning that his productions won't return to London's West End this year. Those are the headlines.
California on Thursday ordered locals to wear masks at nearly all times outside the home. The new mandate is one of the broadest of any U.S. state. Exceptions will be made for people eating in restaurants or exercising outdoors, so long as they maintain 6 feet of physical distance. According to officials, state or local authorities would be able to charge Californians who don't wear a mask with a misdemeanor. Governor Gavin Newsom said the strict new rule was necessary because, quote, we are seeing too many people with faces uncovered, putting at risk the real progress we have made. However, Newsom did not say how the state planned to enforce the order, which even recommends masks for people driving alone in their cars. But most U.S. states have less strict mask guidelines, and some have none, including Montana and South Carolina. But California is leading the way in implementing more stringent measures as cities across the country face a resurgence of the global health crisis amid the relaxation of stay-at-home restrictions.
This is AP News Minute. Lines are already forming in Tulsa, Oklahoma, where President Trump holds his first rally in months on Saturday. Tulsa's health director wants the event postponed. The city is experiencing a spike in coronavirus cases. Lawyers for the U.S. government and former National Security Advisor John Bolton go to court in Washington Friday. The White House is trying to stop the publication of Bolton's new book, which is very critical of the president. California Governor Gavin Newsom signed a bill to send every registered voter a mail-in ballot for the November election. The bill's sponsor said voters shouldn't have to risk their life and health during the coronavirus outbreak. A National Guard helicopter removed an abandoned bus from the Alaska wilderness. Hunters and hikers used the bus as a shelter, and it was featured in the book Into the Wild. But authorities said it was moved due to safety concerns. Ed Donahue, The Associated Press, with AP News Minute.
You're watching BBC World News with me, David Eads. The headlines. The Australian Prime Minister says a major cyber attack is underway against his country. It's targeting government, industry and political parties. Scott Morrison says a sophisticated state-based actor is behind the attack, but he wouldn't say which country was responsible. EU leaders are to meet via video conference later in search of a deal worth €750 billion to support countries worst hit by COVID-19. Some countries want the entire fund to be offered as loans to be paid back. The Supreme Court has blocked President Trump's attempt to cancel an Obama program preventing the deportation of people who entered the US illegally as children. And the US Senator and former presidential candidate Amy Klobuchar said she doesn't want to become Joe Biden's running mate in November's election.